because it's a much broader issue. The concern around the consumer is going to come from the fact that if we do see profit margins start to weaken, if we do see layoffs start to pick up, then that's going to affect consumers and all of their spending, right? Not just that discretionary spending, but across the board. So I do think consumers right now are supporting a lot of what we're seeing in the economy. Obviously, they've had boosts from the One Big Beautiful Bill, from tax refunds. They've been spending down their savings, but that can't continue to go on for very long. So we have to be mindful of what it looks like, especially when consumption is growing faster than incomes. And obviously, World Cup and Prime Day probably helped those numbers over the last few weeks. I can say I was part of the Prime Day buying frenzy that there was, but I do think going forward, we might see that pull back, and that's going to be a concern across the board.
Victoria, what was the fallout from the SpaceX IPO? Will we see Anthropic and OpenAI delay their IPOs because of this? Or, I mean, are conditions so good that why would you delay?
You know, Lonnie, it's true. We have seen, I think, already some narrative around those getting pushed further out. We were expecting them to be, I think, before September, and now it looks maybe they might be later in the year or even going into 2027. I do think there might be a little bit of hesitancy, and some of that related to cost of capital that we're seeing, yields moving higher, more concern on the geopolitical side. So perhaps there's some other reasons that are feeding into having a delay, but I would expect them to come to market over the next 6 months or so, and I would expect them to be oversubscribed, just like we've seen on SpaceX.
How is that still the case, Victoria, with just the amount of supply that's come to market, be it SpaceX, some of these other IPOs, a cross-listing, the biggest ever from a foreign company in the way of SK Hynix? I know a really big bullish thesis, not just the equity market, but credit markets too. It's just there's a lot of money on the sidelines that needs to get put to work. Is there a level, or is it just so far away at which there's enough supply that starts to tip that supply-demand balance?
The demand is there. I mean, it doesn't matter, it seems like, what's coming to market. The demand is there and it's soaking it up. Even if you see it in the credit markets, like you mentioned, we've seen a lot of the hyperscalers come to the credit markets. Those are oversubscribed. We see it in the SpaceX IPO. And then SK Hynix, like you mentioned, there does not seem to be a lack of demand from investors that are wanting to put money to work. And I know there was a lot of discussion around maybe that's part of the rotation trade that we saw, people getting money to have kind of arrows in their quiver for these elements that are coming into the market. But it seems like, you know, investors are ready to put money to work in these areas. They see long-term growth potential there, and they're not worried about balance sheets as of yet. That could become an issue further on as we see free cash flow continue to decline in some of these big tech names. But for right now, investors are game and ready to go.
Victoria, so wonderful to have you on. Thank you so much for joining. That's Victoria Fernandez of Crossmark. About 8 minutes into your trading day, let's get a check on your equity markets. And again, we rise higher. We need to get to, I think it's 76.09 or thereabouts was the last record. So we need to surpass that in order to hit another record. We're not too far away. We're gaining about 0.5% so far this morning. What is leading us there? It is Mag 7 in the big cap tech. Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Broadcom, Tesla, Alphabet, all leading the charge. Bank stocks continue to rally with JP Morgan and Bank of America. One of the interesting things, Lonnie and I were talking about this, the fact that chip makers are declining today, and a lot of the memory stocks. It feels like this trade that you can't have both the Mag 7 and the chip makers gaining in the same day. One of them is up, the other one's going to be down, and that's still the case today with Micron and SanDisk leading the declines in terms of points moved to the S&P. A really bad day for healthcare too. Eli Lilly is down, Elevance Health is down because J&J had pretty poor earnings. I don't see J&J on the biggest decliners list, interestingly enough, but it is bringing down all of healthcare with it. And if you look at the sectors, healthcare is the worst performing. That safety stock index, or now it's energy actually, it was healthcare just a moment ago, but both of them are pretty evenly tied down about 1/3 of 1%. And then at the top, you have consumer discretionary, communication services with the big Mag 7, and again, financials having a very strong day yet again, Barney.
Yeah, we didn't get quite the bump from the PPI that we got from the CPI, that's for sure, Danny.
Already priced in.
Yeah, exactly. Coming up, Goldman's global co-head of capital solutions shares his outlook following a blockbuster quarter for the bank. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell. Thank you for joining. We are live streaming on Rumble, on YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. We're going to go over the news. Also, we are going to go over the markets and how the markets are performing. Because of the new escalation that's happening in the Middle East, we need to pay attention. If you follow my advice, you'll make money. Also, I'm going to tell you how to improve your health. So this is a great way to help support the work that I do by purchasing the great products that I offer. But you can also donate if you are a viewer overseas, because I have a lot of viewership overseas. And I don't ship my products overseas, and you want to help support the work. Please share the links, ask your social media to follow me, and you can be a paid member to my Patreon Substack channel, or you can donate on my website through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. It's really easy. Just go to the webpage of my website and just click the link at the bottom of the homepage. That way you can help support the work that I do. For the domestic audience, you can do that also, and you can purchase the great products that I offer. Some of the great products that I offer are structural nano silver lozenges. This is really important for the allergy season and the cold season and when you're cleaning around the home. It has structural nano silver, so it's going to neutralize. You can get it in Orange Splash or Manuka Honey. Very high quality. Get a few bags for your household. You never know when you need them, especially if you're cleaning around the house and it's dusty, or in the basement, or in the yard. It will help to neutralize. Another great stack that I have to help boost up your immune system and help with brain function is the following. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your skin. It will help to cross-link with the collagen that I sell to help improve your dermal layer. Vitamin C and magnesium helps with the immune system and also with brain function. Many people aren't taking enough magnesium to boost up that brain function and slow down that aging process. Magnesium and zinc boosts up the immune system and helps with brain function. Stack them together for max benefit. Again, too many people in the United States are not taking enough magnesium to help with their brain function. You don't want to overdo it, but the thing is that taking higher doses of supplements, especially when you stack them a certain way, will slow down the aging process. And clarity factor. Clarity factor will get rid of that brain fog. You're going to be able to concentrate on tasks, and it will help to improve that positive neuroplasticity so you'll have more dendritic connections. Your neurons will connect better. So what you'll notice after taking this for a while, that your speed of cognition is faster and your memory is improved. So please go to my store and get the Clarity Factor. Take it every day. It's a great way to improve your brain function. And like I said, you can stack it. Magnesium and zinc, vitamin C and magnesium, and the Clarity Factor. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take care of your brain. A lot of people in your circle of friends or family members or coworkers, I am sure they are starting to show signs of cognitive decline. You can reverse it. You can reverse it if you catch it early. It's about keeping the inflammation down, soaking up the free radicals, and getting the better blood flow, and giving the nutrients that your neurons need for proper health. So it's a holistic approach. It works. Just do it. And a fun little fact, if you build muscle, you're actually protecting your neurons because you're increasing your myokine concentrations in BDNF. With that, the markets are open. The S&P 500 is at 7,573. VIX is at 16. Euro is trading at 114. The Japanese yen is trading at 162.22. Currencies are relatively stable. What is interesting is the 10-year bond price went up, so the yield has gone down. The 10-year yield is now trading at 10-year yield is trading at 4.573. 30-year yield is trading at 5.10. So it is elevated. So just pay attention to that yield curve. Now, Bitcoin's trading at 65,425. Oil's trading above the 68.78 level. It's trading at 79.95. And natural gas is trading at 2.878. All right, I put in a complex trade where I'm shorting natural gas. I'm also longing natural gas. I'm longing oil. I'm also longing Gush, which is longing energy companies. So we'll see how that all plays out. All right, but that's where I'm at right now. I still have a target for the S&P 500 at 7,800 to about 8,000. Now, what is interesting in the news is you're hearing money managers say, well, maybe they're just going to take profits and walk away for the rest of the year and just close the books at such a high level. I think there's still a little more juice in the fruit to gain before you close your books out. I think it's a little too early, but that was a discussion earlier during Bloomberg's interviews. Now, let's go to Bloomberg, but let's just keep in mind that there's a few things that are going to be happening. PPI data, this rotation that's happening with artificial intelligence companies and chip companies, the hyperscalers, and so there's a little bit of a rotation. I still think that the business model for OpenAI and Anthropic is terrible, and there's no chance in the near term of reaching profitability. So it's somewhat of a scam, and because of the circular financing, I suspect that the AI bubble is starting to deflate. Now, bubbles can deflate slowly, which is a good thing, or they can burst unexpectedly. I think in this case, it's not going to be a burst, it's going to be a deflation of the bubble. Okay, with that, let's listen to Bloomberg.
There is a lot of capital that's available to kind of fund these things. So, but we'll have gyrations in the market. That's pretty normal for India.
How do you distinguish between a gyration and what we're seeing now with the spreads widening versus saying, okay, this is a market that has become more discerning. It's not just going to buy every debt. It's not going to buy every single equity offering that comes to market. Is this a market that's getting more selective?
Yeah, I would say there is a stat that we spend a lot of time looking at, which is kind of the single name equity wall versus index wall. So if you look at kind of like, so index is kind of a representation of what the market thinks about broadly, how is the economy going to evolve. So index wall actually is as low as it's been. Whereas single name wall is this difference between single name and index wall is as high it's been. So that goes exactly to the point that you're making, which is markets are very discerning about each and every name. Like pricing a single name actually is a much more of a premium right now. Because we're in a very uncertain world. We're in a world where the impact of AI and how it's going to evolve is very uncertain. So there is going to be name-by-name analysis that has to get done.
I mean, do you think that makes more companies who have yet to come to market? I'm thinking of an OpenAI. I know there's some rumors about Samsung doing an ADR. They've since denied that. But do you think it makes companies more hesitant to come to market than maybe they were in the first half, just given the volatility that we've seen erupt?
I think what we really find is like the companies which have a good underlying story, especially again, anything around AI theme, I think there's still so much appetite from the market that I don't think this is going to change anything in now. Again, the timing might be different. If some macro thing changes, that could kind of postpone some of the things. But bigger picture though, I do think this momentum that's there in the AI theme, that will mean more of the companies will be tapping both equity and debt markets.
Well, let's go to private capital, where I know you spent a large chunk of your time as well. Private capital has seen this backlog. Your colleague David Solomon was talking about it on the earnings call, basically saying that yes, M&A markets are really robust, but we have seen sponsor activity lag below its 10-year averages. What brings back private capital and private equity specifically?
Yeah, so if you kind of, again, private capital itself obviously is a much larger space. If you break it down between private equity and private credit, we can come back to private credit, but private equity is really where there's been a little bit of a gap, right? If you look at the numbers again, there is about $4 trillion of assets that have to kind of get disposed of by private equity. But the stat that I'm very focused on is the average time it takes for an asset to get disposed. And that's at 7 years right now. And that's an all-time high, right? So, and the other stat that we spend a lot of time thinking about is the return of capital, which is what, LPs are very focused on. And that's kind of been around the 10 to 12% range over the last 3 years versus averages of 16 to 17. So I think there is some work to be done there. The kind of the software hiccup that has happened is not helping that too. So private equity overall, I do think will have a little bit more time before kind of it gets back to its normal run rate in terms of capital return, etc. But having said that, I think one of the things that all of us tend to do is when these trends emerge, we tend to kind of, go in two different directions of like, oh, is this the end of, what's happening with private equity? And in a world where if you look at the overall equity capitalization, it's about 150 trillion now, globally, right? So that needs private capital. So on a 3 to 5 year horizon basis, I think this backlog will get cleaned up.
But does the backlog get cleaned up by capitulation? That's something Scott Kleiman of Apollo has said. Do you think that's what these funds are going to need to do to clear it up?
I think it will be a combination of things. Again, we are seeing that obviously in terms of like valuation discounts that companies are comfortable taking versus historical. So there will be some valuation reset for sure. I mean, some companies will obviously benefit from the AI tailwind and they'll probably perform well. And some will actually come to the public markets, but I think it's going to take some time.
That was Mahesh Sairedi of Goldman Sachs off the back of record earnings from Goldman Sachs. Coming up on the show, Palantir Chief Technology Officer joins us to discuss the future of defense technology right after this break. You're watching Open Interest.
All right, beginning in the Middle East, U.S. forces conducting a fourth night of crushing strikes against Iran.
And President Trump says next week will be even worse if Tehran doesn't come to the table.
Mike Tobin joins us live. He's in Tel Aviv, and he's got the latest. Mike?
Good morning, Joey. Good morning, gang. The U.S. blockade is now in place. And President Trump says what that means is that the strait is open with the exception of any ship that visits an Iranian port. What we've seen from both Iran and the U.S. now is an increase in strikes. U.S. Central Command says they've wrapped up another round of strikes inside of Iran. The targets have been Iranian missile and drone sites, naval capabilities, and coastal defense sites. And this follows 7 commercial ships that have been struck crossing the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper gave a number we haven't heard yet. Nearly a dozen civilian crew members killed, missing, or injured by the Iranian strikes. And he added, U.S. forces are holding Iran accountable for unwarranted aggression that continues to endanger innocent lives. 137 days into this conflict, with the Trump reportedly holding meetings in the Situation Room about expanding the U.S. offensive in Iran, the president told our Troy Yates, Carg Island is still a possibility.
Are you ruling out a ground campaign in a limited capacity?
I don't want to say that either, but I would say no if I thought it was appropriate. I'd say sometimes you need a ground campaign, but we have other people that will do the ground campaign for us. But we already hit Carg Island. As far as taking it is concerned, if we degrade them far enough and deep enough back, I would do that.
We have video of an Iranian Shahed drone striking a target in Kuwait. There is some reporting that that target was a U.S. base, but I should note that is not confirmed. Iran has insisted they are not firing at their neighbors, but firing at U.S. targets in those countries. Bahrain took some fire today, says aggressive aerial attacks were intercepted. Also, a drone came down in Iraq. No reports of injuries. Guys, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm sorry. At some point, you run out of targets. And I think what you've seen the president is he's hitting these weapon facilities, these different areas that we had once hit before that they started to reconstitute. But the president made the point with Trey Yates yesterday. At some point, you get bridge and power plant day. If the Iranians don't come to the negotiation, they've shown no willingness to do it. The deal is pretty much over, the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. And so I think we eventually are going to see that escalation.
Joey, with your military experience, a meeting in the Situation Room, that tells me it's classified, it's anti-eavesdropping, it's highly sensitive, time-critical national security issue.
Yeah, so the president's got two things happening at once. On one side, he's keeping his cards close to the vest as far as what they're actually going to do. On the other side, One thing this president does that maybe presidents in the past haven't done is he uses posturing. When he says next week is Bridge and Power Plant Day, that's not a message to the American people. That's not a message to the American military. That's a message to Iran. The hope is that he doesn't have to get to that. The problem is when you make a threat like that, you have to fulfill it. And President Trump is known for doing that. And so, does Iran push President Trump to that point? It matters because that is infrastructure that affects civilians in their life. And there are areas of Iran that are being affected by this that don't support the regime and don't support anything that's happening. It's a complicated answer, but when we have a chance to talk to Trey Yingson a little bit, the real question is if we have the ability, because Lawrence, you talked about run out of targets. If we have the ability to truly decimate their ability to attack anything in the Strait, right, why did we even have a memorandum of understanding to begin with? Why did we ever go there? There's only two answers there. One is the cost to us is so great that we don't want to have to do it. When I say cost, I mean like bombs and bullets and blood. Right. Or the other is we don't quite have that capability the way we want or the administration wants to project. And I don't mean that we couldn't, but the timeline it would take to get there is much longer.
Well, it's also a president, to your point, just to build on that, Joe, there's two things that's impacted him the way he's handled this war. It's one, obviously, he doesn't want to hit the Iranian civilians. You don't want to make that problem worse. You've seen 30,000 of them already been killed by the regime there. So the president wants to support them. But number two, some people have talked about the president taking Harangue Island or going to get the nuclear dust, and that will require ground troops to be able to do that the right way. And there could be casualties, and the president has made it very clear he doesn't want to have to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. The question is, since the Iranians have a vote, will they push the president in that direction? And that's something we just don't know yet.
Yeah, it would affect a lot of the civilians if he destroyed the infrastructure, and that's what he doesn't want to do, but he's not afraid to do it if he has to.
It needs to happen. It needs to happen. The United States needs to destroy and degrade and prevent the IRGC from reconstituting. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Gladiator Barley. This will help to detoxify your body, break down inflammation, soak up free radicals, help you to recover after a workout, and help to build muscle. So do some resistance training, take the Gladiator Barley, and by bringing down inflammation, bringing down those free radicals, you're helping other organ systems like your immune system and your endocrine system, your brain function, your cardiovascular system. Super important. A lot of people don't realize that if you have chronic inflammation, you're going to cause neural death. You have chronic inflammation, you're going to cause other organ systems to not perform properly and become diseased. It's important to keep inflammation down. Now, if you've been paying attention to me, my protocol focuses on boosting up energy levels, bringing down free radicals, and bringing down inflammation. And when you do that, you're slowing down the aging process, and you couple that with other holistic approaches like proper diet and exercise and proper sleep, staying away from sugary substances, making sure you filter your water, be active and have lift weights and do some cardio, do some stretching and balancing. When you do these things regularly, learn new things, you're going to actually slow down the aging process. And these are variables that are found commonly in individuals in blue zones that live for longer period of time. If you want to be a centurion and have vitality, you should pay attention to what I'm saying. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Gladiator Barley. Now, for example, Lindsey Graham had a dissecting aorta. Well, that's a micro tear that leads to the peeling away of the different layers. Blood starts to accumulate and then it bursts. You die very quickly, right? But it starts with inflammation. You keep the inflammation low. You don't have these micro tears in your blood vessels. This is how plaque is formed. Cardiovascular disease starts when you're 15 years old. Why? Because of the poor diet. that is happening in the United States and some of the environmental exposures. So when you have lots of free radicals, lots of LDL, they oxidize, you have inflammation that does the micro tear in the intima of your blood vessel, and you get plaque. And over time it accumulates, and then all of a sudden you have high blood pressure or other problems. It starts when you're young. It's asymptomatic, but heart disease starts when you're young, 15 years old. It's already been proven through scans, lots of data. Almost everyone in the United States has heart disease. Or let me rephrase that. Almost everyone in the United States has cardiovascular disease. Some of it's asymptomatic. So it behooves you to listen. Keep the inflammation down, and you won't have some of these problems. Myotrol is a supplement that will help to build muscle. Now, remember that gladiator barley detoxifies your body, soaks up those free radicals, keeps the inflammation down, and helps to build muscle if you do resistance training. Now, myotrol helps with the gene expression to build that muscle. Gladiator barley is the building blocks to build the muscle. Myotrol helps the gene expression to build muscle. When you turn age 40, roughly, you have genes that are methylated to a point where they don't express as well. You don't get youthful gene expression if you go down this route of aging, of advanced aging. You want to slow down the methylation. You want to have an epigenetics that's younger, not older. And therefore, you'll be able to build muscle. Myotrol will help with that gene expression to build muscle. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans. Now, what will happen is you do resistance training, take myotrol, and you'll notice that you are maintaining muscle mass and building more muscle mass. So you're reducing atrophy and you're building muscle. This is really important if you're 40 years of age or older, male or female. One, more muscle will help with metabolism. Number two, by doing resistance training, you're helping to strengthen your bones and you're building more muscle to help with your skeletal structure. You're helping to improve your posture. If you look at older people, what happens? They start shrinking and they start hunching over. So by improving your posture, building your back muscles, you're going to improve venous return flow and you're going to improve your lymphatic flow. That means that your heart will perform better and your immune system will perform better by just having better back muscles. Now, when you build up your calves, that's your second heart. So it's also going to help with that venous return flow. And building more muscle, you have higher concentrations of myokines and BDNF, which are neuroprotective. They'll help with your brain function. So it's really important to take the myotrol. Now, the ingredients in here help to keep the inflammation down too. So you'll recover quicker. Now, if you're an athlete, younger or older, and you want to strengthen for your sport, I recommend taking myotrol and gladiator barley. Now, athlete or non-athlete, younger or older, you can benefit from this. Now, I highly recommend stacking them together. You can take them separately, but you get synergistic benefits by stacking the gladiator barley with the myotrol and doing the resistance training. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take my advice. You can learn a lot from sports medicine to help slow down aging. All right, let's listen to Ducey. Peter Ducey.
All right, in just a couple of hours, President Trump's pick for Attorney General Todd Blanche is headed to Capitol Hill for his nomination hearing.
So the acting AG is expected to face harsh questioning from the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Senior White House correspondent Peter Ducey joins us now with those details. Hey, Peter.
Good morning, and this is going to be a big day because if there is one thing that President Trump envies about former President Barack Obama, it is that Barack Obama, in his opinion, had an Attorney General, Eric Holder, who was a lot more loyal to Obama than any Trump AGs have been so far to Trump.
What do you want to hear from Blanche tomorrow during this confirmation?
Oh gosh, what are his priorities for the departments? They can't go back to the days of parents at school board meetings having the Justice Department anti-terrorism unit activated against them.
Controversial cases where he was representing the president personally as well as in office, and real questions as to whether or not he went too far.
And the biggest one there, of course, for Democrats would be the handling of the Epstein files. The president says Todd Blanche is doing a phenomenal job as acting Attorney General of the United States under Todd's incredible leadership at DOJ. Murder is down to the lowest level since 1900, and we just saw the biggest one-year drop in recorded history. Violent crime arrests are up 100%. Robberies, carjackings, and assaults are all crashing. More than 500 million deadly doses of drugs have already been seized, saving countless innocent lives. Part of President Trump's issue today with getting Blanche through might be Republicans, including Tom Tillis and John Cornyn, who are on their way out anyways, so they might not have much to lose if they don't back Blanche. According to Politico today, both of those men could vote Blanche down if he cannot assure them that the so-called weaponization fund to pay out people with taxpayer money who think they have been wronged by the federal government is dead. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
So it was a big questioning mark for me, Ainsley, when it came to Todd Blanche initially, because I didn't know much about him, but I found him to be an excellent trial lawyer. And if you value the rights and your freedoms, and you're just this average American, this is the guy that you want as Attorney General because he's going to respect the rights of the people. We saw Department of Justice that targeted Americans, parents, people, the praying grandmas out there, and violated their rights. And he's kind of returned the Department of Justice back to his origin. I appreciate that.
Yeah, here's Jonathan Turley on whether it's going to be difficult to confirm him.
I knew the senator well. We worked together for almost 30 years. And what we lost is someone who was able to pierce through a lot of the noise and nonsense on the Hill. We really need him, not just his vote, but his clarity of thought. We have to see how many of these Republican senators are going to carry through. There's been suggestions that some of them might vote against Todd. I have to emphasize one thing. Todd Blanche is one of the most skillful lawyers in the United States. He has an outstanding career. So you can't oppose him on the merits. I mean, this guy is really quite remarkable in his skills. So this is an alarming situation for the White House as well. It's hard to deal with the strategic aspects because we're all mourning the loss of Lindsey, but we're going to have to focus on that and get him through this process because he deserves to be the Attorney General of the United States.
Yeah, I guess it's a bad season in the Senate for the president to get any confirmation through. You've got some senators that have lost in the primary that may have a rub. I don't know that either of them have a rub here or even sit on the Judiciary Committee. I'm not sure. You have other senators that they've already won the primary. They know they're going to win their general, so they can take a risk now maybe that they couldn't take before the primary season. But ultimately, not just losing Lindsey Graham as a vote, but losing Lindsey Graham as someone of influence and someone that both sides of the aisle have said in the last couple of days could get you there, could make you feel okay about it, could bring some levity to a heated situation. I mean, I understand what John Cottrell is saying. I don't understand what the big rebuttal would be to Todd Blanche from any senator, especially on the right. And we're in a day and age now where you need 51 votes.
Yeah, some people were not in favor of that $1.8 billion fund payout to the victims of lawfare, including the J6. And some people have questions about the Epstein files. They'll probably ask them about that and the DOJ's actions against these journalists, the FBI raids and the subpoenas on some of the journalists. Also,
Alrighty. Let's see here.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and the YouTube Music app all together. One subscription.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Rick Santelli here live at CME HQ with the important breaking news this morning. Because of the CPI, the wholesale side producer price index for the month of June hitting the wires. Headline number -0.3%. That is 0.3 lower than the unchanged expectations in the rearview mirror. Significant revisions along the line. This one from 1.1 to down to 0.6. And why is that significant? Because 1.1 was basically a 4-year high, so we're coming off of that -0.3. That would be the biggest negative month-over-month change going all the way back to April of 2020. It's equal to where we were in April of last year at -0.3. Now, let's strip out the all-important food and energy, up 0.2, less than expectations, and rearview mirror, real big revision from 0.4 up to only up 0.1, and it's significant because, of course, food and energy is going to be a volatile area here, but that's still less than expectations. Now let's strip out food, energy, and trade. Number expected up 0.3, comes out up 1/10. No revisions that I see to that 0.8 in the rearview mirror. That was basically a 4-year high. When it comes to how this one compares on food, energy, and trade, well, up 1/10 would be the least amount going back to April of last year when it was slightly negative. Now let's go year over year, shall we? On final demand headline, number comes in at 5.5. We're expecting a number over 6%. And last month, 6.5% gets downgraded to 6%. So there's another big revision from what was a 3.5-year high. And if we look at year over year, X food, X energy, that comes in at 4.7. We're expecting a number over 5. Don't see a revision to the 4.9 of rearview mirror, which was a 3.5-year high. And finally, X food, energy, and trade comes in at 5.1. That's actually one of the closest numbers to expectations. We're looking for 5.2. It equals last month at 5.1. So we are continuing to be a little bit high on that benchmark. And I'd like X food, energy, and trade. The 5.1 in the rearview mirror, that was basically the loftiest number in roughly 3.5 years. So we're sticking around in that area at this point. Empire Manufacturing, we're expecting a July read to come in a +9. It comes in more aggressive at 15.6. That would be the best read going back to, April of 22. That's how we, excuse me. We do have a positive read that was in May. That was 19.6. That was the highest since April of 2022. Now, after all that, folks, what do we see? We see that we're hovering right around 460 in a 10-year prior to the numbers. We're at 458. 2-year was at 420. Now it's at 417. The yield curve is steepened from the 24th of June's close at 24 basis points. Now it's at 41 basis points. The flattening was taking out the easing. The steepening, of course, is to some extent taking out some of the aggressive tightening. And the reason it's steepening is because 2-year yields are a little more aggressive on a give back than the 10s. And as Peter Bookfar has been telling us all at CNBC in the world, what a great research artist he is, pay attention to real rates. They're on the rise. I still see some pressure, of course, in the long term, and debt deficits do matter. But at least for the moment, sometimes logic gives way to market-driven aspects of fundamentals and technicals intersecting. I still see some potential for some downside, but I can't stress enough. Any close above 467, especially on a weekly basis, or above 518 in a 30-year on a weekly basis, will significantly make the upside more aggressive. Joe and the gang, back to you.
So inflation is relatively controlled at the moment. All right, markets are at the S&P 500, 7,573. VIX is at 16. Euro's at 114. Japanese yen's at 162.21. So things are stable. Oil has been going up and then undulating down. It's testing the support level of 68.78. It's at just above that. It's at 79.73. Now, Gush is trading at 34.84. It's been going down since the opening, and Drip is slightly going up. Drip now is trading at 46.66. Natural gas is somewhat trending down, but there is a little bit of a retracement at 2.891. So right now I have longs and shorts for oil, longs and shorts for natural gas. Okay, with that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen will help with your skin, help with the dermal layer, especially when you cross-link it with the vitamin C. Drink filtered water, take vitamin C, and the collagen, and your dermal layer will improve. It'll help with your skin and your nails. It'll help with musculature, bone density, and the health of your joints. Take it every day. It's a very high-quality collagen. And if you want to remodel your joints, you can take the collagen. Now, you can take it separately, but I recommend that you take it with the collagen. Now, collagen will help to rebuild the joint. If you have arthritis or a sports injury, the quicker that you attend to it, the faster it will heal. The longer you've had the problem, the longer it will take. But what you need to do is do these exercises and take the collagen. And if you want, also take the collagen to speed up the process. But it's simple. If you have arthritis, let's say in your hand, what you do is you open it up or close up to the point where you have the pain, go a little bit more, and hold it for about 20 to 30 seconds. And then release, and then do that 3 times. Do that every day. Now, what you're doing is you're sending a micro signal in that microenvironment to remodel. Now, collagen, what this will do is help to block the pain gatekeeper, NAV 1.7, so pain will be reduced. But also, collagen will help to block inflammation that's eroding the joint. So it helps to block EP4, which is an enzyme that promotes inflammation. The enzymes that erode the joint are MMP3 and MMP13. Collagen blocks those. So you're stopping the erosion of the joint. And collagen helps to recruit the ingredients that you need to remodel the cartilage and the cushioning of the joint. So take this every day and do that exercise. And I highly recommend taking the collagen so you have the building blocks to remodel that joint. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen and the collagen. And again, it's great for arthritis and also sports injuries. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, and you get $5 off. All right, let's listen into Bloomberg here. Again, the S&P 500 is at 7,579. It's starting to, it opened up positively, and then it retraced, then it went down, and then now it's coming back up. And the intraday high is at 7,581. So we're inching close to 7,600. I have a long target, year-end target of 7,800 to 8,000. And then we'll reassess. I suspect that once we get to the end of the year, you probably want to put about 1/3 in cash and wait for this potential market correction. But there's still some juice in the fruit here, and you know, let's inch this thing closer to 7,800. Plus X dividends coming up. So if you have money in the S&P 500 or Russell or some other broad index, you'll be getting a dividend too. And you like making money, right? So just pay attention. Now, oil is testing that barrier of 68.78. It's at 79.68. If there's more negative news, then it's going to go up, and then Gush will go up. If it's positive news, oil will go down, Gush will go down, DRIP will go up, and SCO will go up. So I have this hedge strategy in the market where I'm longing and shorting natural gas and oil. All right.
8% or a little over 20% year to date, while the S&P, the cap weighted S&P is only up 10. But you're seeing that broadening, which actually in aggregate, given that you've got the duck paddling underneath the surface of individual sectors, is positive, because we've had the exact opposite with this market, where it was very narrow to begin with for years on the AI trade. And now we're seeing it broaden. And typically lasting bull markets start broad and then get narrow. So the fact that we're doing that transition and being able to do the handoff is actually pretty constructive for intermediate and longer term markets.
In the second half, we've got the midterm elections coming up, and I recognize that, we're still kind of far away from it. We're mid-July, the elections come around in early November. But are you anticipating any degree of not just volatility, but positioning or, I don't know, issues or just unexpected news that could, send everyone for cover because they get nervous about what kind of stuff comes up?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was on the road earlier this spring with our head of government affairs, and we just co-wrote a piece this week called Politics and Portfolios. And we talk about mixing the two typically doesn't work, but one of the most interesting things in talking to clients in a variety of key markets, the most interesting things in this elect is that you've got a lot of industry backing. It's not a Democrat versus Republican, it's industry backing in terms of crypto picking candidates. They want to support AI picking candidates. They want to support it. So there's a lot more interaction in individual markets. There's also obviously a lot of controversy around AI, those who are super supportive of it, those who are pushing back against the data centers, those who are in favor of nuclear. So there's a lot to talk about, but like my co-author said, it's a lifetime between here and the midterms, and a lot can happen in 4 or 5 months.
Carol, how do you guys think about U.S. versus rest of the world these days?
I think that broadening that you're seeing also is going on in the rest of the world. We're not necessarily thrilled with a lot of the developed markets, particularly in Europe, but there's opportunity in emerging markets. They handled the constriction, if you will, of what's gone on through the Strait of Hormuz very well. You've got a lot of activity going there. We need to be careful. You've got a lot of leveraged ETFs, moving indexes there. So investors need to know what they're doing. But it's a very interesting market, we think, both technologically and from a portfolio diversification standpoint, that you'll see a lot of continued activity there.
Carol, is South Korea, and you talk about the leveraged single stock ETFs, and of course, I'm thinking about, you know what? We need to end our conversation now because Kevin Warsh, the Fed chair, has begun the Q&A session. Carol, thank you so much for joining us. Carol Schleif, of course, Chief Market Strategist at BMO Wealth Management. Let's go now to Washington, where we are going to be listening to Kevin Warsh, the Fed chair, answer questions from the Senate Finance Committee. Paul, he spoke with the House Financial Services Committee yesterday, yes, and it was a 3-hour ordeal?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so this one's going to be shorter because there are fewer members, but we're looking right now at
no, we're not going to
Senator
listen.
Scott.
We're not going to listen to Warsh taking questions, but what I do want to take a look at here is Michael Knowles talking about the Democrats and election fraud. So let's listen to Michael Knowles here.
Democrats, sitting Democrat politicians, including Democrat Senator Alyssa Slotkin, are now openly saying that if the Save America Act is passed, the Save America Act, which just says you have to prove you're an eligible voter to vote, if the Save America Act is passed, no Democrat will win any election in any state around the country.
The other thing that we blocked yesterday was the SAVE Act, right? Which was literally allow this administration to rig our democracy so that it would be hard for any Democrat in any state to win any election. And disenfranchise all married women in the meantime, by the way. And just, you have to show your birth certificate at the polls if you have a married name.
Okay, so hold on. Before that last comment, notice what she says. She goes, the SAVE Act, the Save America Act, which is the kind of juiced up version, the SAVE Act would make it hard for any Democrat to win any election in any state. What an odd thing to say. Because the SAVE Act, the Save America Act, they just say you need to prove you're an eligible voter in order to vote. So why in our country with tens of millions of illegal aliens and plenty of other people who shouldn't be voting, why, and people who rig the election by voting twice and who ballot harvest and send in a bunch of stuffed ballot boxes and all the rest, why would the SAVE Act or the Save America Act make it hard for any Democrat to win any election ever? Notice what she tacks on at the end.
My understanding with proving citizenship, all you need is a passport or a birth certificate. I don't think a driver's license works for that, but you need a passport to fly on a plane or that ID. Probably that ID for flying could probably be used as proof of citizenship, but maybe not. But the thing is that most people have a passport. Now the problem would come in during the election, or when you're registering for voting. Is your passport valid? Who knows? But the thing is, it's not that hard to get a birth certificate these days. Back in the old days, you had to literally go to the city hall or where the records are for the town that you were born in. Everything's digitized now, so it's not that big of a deal. So proof of citizenship, I think, is needed for voting. I don't see anything wrong with that.
A blatant lie. She says it would also disenfranchise all married women. What? Yeah, it would also disenfranchise all married women because they would have to bring their birth certificates to show that they could vote. And I think what she's alluding to is that if your name doesn't match your voter ID, then it might be harder for you. You need your ID to match your actual name. But okay, it's hard for you to get on an airplane too. I guess it's hard for you to cash a check too. Exactly. I guess it's hard for you to get a driver's license. Okay, exactly. What are you talking about?
Right, exactly.
I can assure you, just from personal experience, my wife has a married name. We live in states that have proper voting measures, the kind of voting guidelines that will be mirrored in the SAVE Act, and my wife votes. Married women tend to vote Republican anyway, so I don't know why Alyssa Slotkin is actually worried about that. She's not. She tacks that little bit on there at the end, that total lie. I mean, I try not to attack straw man. I try to figure out what my opponents are really saying so I can seriously engage with it. This woman is just lying about that. That's not even close to true. And she tacks on that lie at the end only after she hears how bad what she just said sounds.
All right,
I'm
just going to pause. I'm agreeing with Knowles here. But I want you to pay attention. For the ones that are watching the dashboard, CL, which is the future contract for oil, is trading at 79.29. And it is now going down. All right, so it's not holding. So we may see a potential 78 handle soon here today. So if you're shorting oil, you should be making some money. And natural gas is now retracing. It's moving upward. It's at 2.912. Fair value in the summer season, natural gas should be trading in a range of probably 2.9 to 2.6, somewhere in there. So if it holds the standard trading range, we're at the top and it should come down. But the problem comes in is that we have a war in the Middle East and there's an event risk. So be careful with oil. It could jump up back to $80 a barrel. and natural gas jump up to 3, maybe 3.1.
If you have to prove you're an eligible voter, Democrats will never win another election in America. That's what she said. And she says, oh, yikes. Uh-oh, that's not going to play well. And it'll disenfranchise all the married women. It won't. And married women will have to bring their birth certificate to vote. That's not true. But please forget that I just said that if you have to prove you're an eligible voter, Democrats will never win another election. A strange thing to say. Okay, speaking of liberal deception, Dua Lipa, who I'm reliably informed is a singer, has just partnered with Livraria Lelo in Porto, Portugal. I love Porto, they make great wine, to open a library for banned and censored books. The libs love this stuff. They do this all the time. It's Banned Book Week at schools across the country, public schools across the country. We're going to have a banned book library, a banned book store, and every single time the books that they have in the libraries and the stores are the most uniformly, officially promoted books in the world. Dua Lipa has a banned book library. If you want to go check out the books, I hope you're near Porto, Portugal. What kind of books will you find there? Oh, we got some real naughty stuff. Whew. Don't tell the authorities that you want to go check out The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, a book that is on curricula in every college in America and probably most public schools. Oh, you know what other books they have in the banned bookstore? Ooh, you're gonna be real bad if you read this one. They have 1984 by George Orwell. I bet you've never even heard of that book. I mean, 1984. This has been kept from me for my whole life. What is this book? 1984 by George Orwell. Maybe the only book that anyone reads anymore, or at least pretends to read. That's in the banned bookshop. Oh no, I have one for you. If you've already made it through Simone de Beauvoir's feminist nonsense and 1984, which is a good book, but it's kind of overplayed, you can read this banned book, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Maybe the book is banned. I don't think the hit television series based on the book is banned, but maybe the book, I don't know, I haven't checked. I've never tried to buy the book. I have no interest in reading the book, but I think you can buy it everywhere. I think it's on curricula everywhere too. They also have The Trial by Kafka, one of the most famous and widely available books in the whole world, as well as The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie, which is banned by Muslims, not by anyone in the West. It's very popular in the West, but it is banned by Muslims who have tried to kill Salman Rushdie for the book. There's a fatwa against him, and they almost succeeded at killing him. None of these are banned books. None of the books that appear on banned book lists during Banned Book Week at all the public schools and libraries across the country, none of them are actually banned or censored. If you wanted to have a banned book library, do you know what you would put in the banned book library? You would publish the collected works of David Irving. Okay, that's what you would publish Holocaust revisionism. If you wanted to have a banned book week, you would have the Anarchist Cookbook. And frankly, not even that. The Anarchist Cookbook, which is a guidebook to left-wing terrorism, even that isn't really totally banned. You can still get it on Amazon for like $50. You can't get it on Amazon for $10, but you can get it for $50 on Amazon. The David Irving stuff, the Holocaust revisionism, you can't get those at libraries or bookshops. You can find them for like $1,000 on eBay or wherever. If you wanted to have a banned book week in a public school, do you know what book you would put in that banned book library? You'd probably put the Bible.
Senator Warren is having a hissy fit, so let's listen in.
Is one that seems to invite corruption, and that's going to be a real problem.
We've had 7 weeks, Senator Warren, and we've set a tone of performance, accountability, responsibility, and integrity.
Senator Reynolds has the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Warsh, welcome to your first meeting.
Thank you, Senator.
Let me give you an opportunity. I think I've got some questions that I think are important with regard to the Basel III and what we're going to do with it. But before we get into
We're listening to Mike Rounds. He's a senator, Republican from South Dakota.
Making accusations to you. Let me give you just a minute to perhaps respond in
just straightforward manner to some of this stuff. Anybody give you $100 million?
No, Senator, no one did any such thing.
Possible that you may have had assets that were sold based upon an agreement that you had as you became the nominee for the chairmanship?
Yes, I had earned assets over a long period of time and went over and above any ethics agreements and have sold or in the process of selling, have nearly completely sold everything that I had earned during that period and have rolled those into the equivalent of cash and T-bills.
So basically away from investments based upon the market and back to
all right, let's go to Larry Fink. He runs BlackRock. He's very bullish for the next 12 months. So let's listen in here.
I believe the role of financing infrastructure around technology, whether it's financing data centers or financing the purchase of chips. As I said earlier, I think we're going to have markets investing in compute. We're going to have a futures market. This is going to be the next revolution in finance, and it happens because of the strength of the United States capital markets, having the ability to finance these new technologies, so the United States and other places in the world can be leaders in the new technology.
You know, you mentioned 50 years, so I am curious. I mean, have you ever seen anything quite like this, Larry? We've got what were the most profitable companies the world has ever seen,
yes,
making a choice to incinerate, wrong word, to decide not to have any free cash flow anymore, to not return capital to shareholders, because they have to be part of this headlong race to make sure they are not left behind in the AI future. When I listen to myself say that, there's some worrisome aspects to that, are there not?
I mean, I've spoken to some of the leaders this week and last week.
There's a lot of background noise with their record. There's a lot of background noise with the recording because they're on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. But the bottom line is this: there are many companies that are just spending a ton of money on AI and trying to be not behind, but what's the marginal gain? Sometimes it's better to just step back and let everybody else do it and just see what's working, what's not. Especially if it's a new technology, new software, new this, just kind of wait it out. So sometimes things are buggy, in terms of the quality. You don't get exactly what they're saying, what the marketers are saying, and you just kind of wait it out. Sometimes just waiting and being patient is better. While all these other companies are making mistakes. AI is overinvested with not a clear understanding of how it's going to truly improve your revenues for most companies. Now, some companies, especially in engineering, integrating AI and helping the engineering process, there's some added value there. Automating some back operations, not a lot, but some, you'll get marginal productivity of maybe 5 or 10%. But does it warrant all of this CapEx spending? No. Now, if you go to the hyperscaler level and the artificial intelligence frontier model companies, where's the profit? They're building this all out. Where's the profit? It's not there. Oh, they're basically just saying, we're going to build it and the profit will come. Really? It takes to query for OpenAI or Anthropic. I'm just using this as an example. It's not exact number, but the amount of money it takes to process a query and send it back costs more than the revenue coming in. So a customer that's using this AI model, let's just say is spending $1, but it's costing OpenAI or Anthropic $10. So OpenAI or Anthropic is in the hole by $9. How's that? How is that going to be a profitable model? Oh, we'll just build more and have more people. Well, that means you spend more. You can't sell cars and staple a $50 bill to it, every time. If you are just breaking even at the sticker price, you'll be losing money. This is what's happening. And no one's paying attention to this. Well, very few people are paying attention. There are people that are paying attention, but there needs to be a louder voice. So there's two things going on here. Companies that are not hyperscalers, not AI companies, and just trying to improve their business processes, and they're spending this CapEx and on tokens and hiring people to automate processes. It's not going to work. It's not going to be efficient. It sure as hell ain't worth the money. Meanwhile, that money should have gone to shareholders through a dividend or share buyback. Or that money should have gone into other things like new markets, new products. No, they bought into a lie. And Anthropic and OpenAI know this. This is a reason why you're starting to see the manufacturing consensus. You can see it in the news. The first thing that you need to pay attention to is who's saying it and who's going to benefit. And can it be verified on what they're saying? OpenAI says there's going to be this huge improvement in your corporate productivity. You're going to be able to cut costs. You're going to be able to create new products quicker. And you'll have a better bottom line. Really? Where's the proof? Where's the proof? So when you constantly hear this in the news, or even money managers that are investing in a lot of this, because you have to remember, Fink was pushing ESG. Why? Because they had a lot of ESG funds, not because he wanted to save the planet. So they just had a product and they just had marketers say, you need this. So one strategy for OpenAI and Anthropic is to scare you. It's going to destroy jobs, so you need to learn this. It's going to find vulnerabilities in your infrastructure, and hackers are going to get in. So you need this. Really? Where's the proof? And there is the problem. The business model doesn't make money. And therefore, there will be a major crash with this. It may take some time. Now think about The Big Short, all right? And how he was looking at the mortgage companies and the banks, and how there was this derivative financing and subprimes and all this stuff. And he was saying, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. If you look at this from a business point of view, this doesn't make sense. It's going to crash. Something similar. It's not going to be as big as Lehman, but something similar. The money managers are promoting AI. The TV stations, the news networks promoting AI. Think about it. The tech news anchors on Bloomberg, they were promoting Bitcoin back in the early days of FTX, saying it was going to be revolutionary. Why didn't they ask the simple question like, where's the proof that your company is making money? What about the fiduciary responsibility of customer accounts? Are you trading the customer account? Well, that's illegal. Why didn't they do that on the very first or second day that they were interviewing Sam for FTX? No, just keep on having him come in on Emily Chan's show every day for the Bloomberg tech segment, because it was manufacturing a lie. Same thing is happening with AI. Why is it that once OpenAI decided to not go IPO, all of a sudden you're starting to hear a lot about how important Anthropic is because they want a $1 trillion valuation. Now, over a 10-week period, they were only valued at $380 billion, even though they don't make any money. But they were valued at $380 billion. But once they released Mythos, they created this manufactured bullshit saying that it is so much more powerful in finding vulnerabilities. They manufactured, quote, demand, because they know that the customer base is really low. And there's no way they're going to be able to make money relative to the cost of running the query. It takes too much energy. Now, why is that? Part of it is the cost of building up the infrastructure and the servers. But the chips, they're only around 2.5 to 3 years life expectancy. And there is a take rate where they burn out, 10% of them burn out before 18 months. They're not efficient. You can eat a tuna sandwich and think faster than a hyperscale server that's using gigawatts of power. A tuna fish sandwich and the human brain is more efficient than these hyperscaling servers. The infrastructure, the chips, the way they're using neural networks is not efficient. Then go to the reality of the situation. AI LLM is based on probability. What's the probability of the next sentence? What's the probability of what the next word will be? There's no inherent logic between the first sentence, the second sentence, the third sentence, and the fourth sentence. It's just probability. It's not using logic. It's using probability of what the next word should be. So if you go deep with the query, you can catch that the logic is lost between statement 10 and statement 1. It doesn't hold the logic. Why? Because it's only focused on what the probability of the next word and next sentence is. There's no inherent logic. LLM is bullshit. It's bullshit. So you have a bullshit model that OpenAI can't make money. Anthropic, bullshit company, can't make money. Now people would say, well, what about Palantir? Palantir makes some sense. They use AI tools to analyze data. Now, anyone that has done data analysis or gone through a Ph.D. program knows this is all about statistics and the different tools to use. And machine learning has been around for a long time. You have routines in R and in Python, in MATLAB, that can do this stuff for you, and it's been there for a year, more than 15 years. Neural networks and training data sets on neural networks has been there for more than 10 years. And that's open source information. We're being sold a bill of goods for a bunch of billionaires from the tech industry trying to erode your constitutional freedoms. That's what's happening here. Stupid. And there's a lot of people buying into it. A lot of people buying into it. Dumb. So the point I'm making here is that pay attention when you start seeing a bunch of these money managers like BlackRock or Goldman Sachs, and they're pushing this AI, they're doing it for a reason, because the tech industry has nothing else to come up with. Isn't it really odd that once people were starting to ask questions about OpenAI and maybe we're building out too many servers, that all of a sudden NVIDIA starts going, well, we're going to make a chip that's going to be a GPU, and we're going to start getting into the PC market. Really? Well, that sounds a whole lot like when the servers were being sold by IBM and Cray Computer were selling dumb terminals to access the servers, and then all of a sudden the PC market started to gain steam, and the server market fell. And this is part of the reason why IBM started cloning. There was tons of cloned PCs. This is like at the very beginnings of like the 286, 386 days. Something similar is happening here. We're building out too many servers. And the servers that are out there, the leases for the use of the servers are based on just a few companies. And two big ones are OpenAI and Anthropic. So if OpenAI and Anthropic cannot fund their operations, because you have to remember their business model is in the hole, then all of a sudden they don't send checks to the servers, it's companies, and it's all gonna crash. OpenAI is trying to find new funding because their business model is negative. Their net present value is negative. Same thing with Anthropic. It's negative. You can't sustain a company that is negative all the time. The only reason why they've been able to reach to the height that they have so far was because they were able to get investor money to fill the hole. Well, OpenAI wants to do IPO. Oh, and then all of a sudden they decided not to because they couldn't get any investors. See, Bitcoin started failing, and then all of a sudden we start talking about AI, LLMs. And you have to remember the way tech is, these companies that are on the market, they have to keep on showing a shiny new thing, or their stock gets sold off. So the way that they do their processes is that you fake it until you make it. You tell the customer this is what you're going to get. Does it work? No, this is just a mock-up. Really? Nice. Wow. Big tech is running out of ideas to keep the high valuations. That's the big takeaway here. And OpenAI and Anthropic is a fake it until you make it crap. Alrighty, let's see what else is brewing. It's listening to Warsh when I look for another video here.
Be consistent with that. What are going to be the effect on the labor markets in years 2 through 5? It's a fair question. The way I would frame it to you on college graduates, if you're a new college graduate, AI is probably native to you. You've been playing with AI effectively since your high school years. I feel as though you likely have the skills and the intuitions the same way that people of my generation or younger were native to the internet. If you've already been in the workforce for a while and you're a little resistant to change, that's where the encouragement needs to be to think about how these skills can make you more productive.
So let me get this straight. You use ChatGPT or some other chatbot for surfing the internet. Okay, great. And you can use some of these AI capabilities to write scripts and macros for certain applications that you might have. Well, how is that any different than writing a script or a macro, just philosophically? How is that any different than writing a script or a macro in Excel and improving some sort of process where you hit update, where you pull down data from, let's say, Access or from SAP, and it's updating a model, and it's updating a dashboard. Oh, you can vibe code the dashboard. Okay. That's just data analytics using an AI tool. And a lot of people have been doing that. Like I said, this stuff that they're selling in packaging is not new. It's been there for years in terms of AI being a tool to help with a process. There's codes, there are routines, commands that you can use in R, in Python, in MATLAB, that have been there for 15 years. So what's really happening here? You're just gonna vibe code everything? You're gonna vibe code your whole life? You're gonna vibe code the whole corporation? You're gonna vibe code your way out of needing to pay a license to work? Really? You really think that's gonna happen? I don't think so. Now, understanding analytics, understanding statistics, being more in tune to being able to improve processes, and if you chip away at that year after year at a company, you are improving your business or your division or your product. It's not about invention. It's about step-by-step innovation. Step-by-step innovation. Step-by-step innovation. It's not invention.
Pete Ricketts,
Stressing the
friends
and families
that.
at the grocery store. Cleaning up this mess is going to take discipline and it's going to take reform. Chairman Warsh, we discussed in our meeting also how to implement some reforms such as process improvement. We talked specifically about Lean Six Sigma and the opportunity there. You promised to have a reform-oriented Federal Reserve, and we're willing to break up or make a break from some of the mistakes of the past. I commend you for that. I want to work with you to see it through. One of the most important places to start.
All right, I'm going to play this video about. New York is dead. It's gone. Former Reagan economist says. All right, we're going to play that. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and improve your health by improving your gut biome. Get the probiotics either in veggie cap form or in powdered form. I prefer taking the powder, but it's just easier for me. But either one will work for you. Both are very high quality, and it will populate your gut biome, improve your immune system at the gut level, reduce inflammation, reduce producing allergies, food allergies, reduce leaky gut syndrome. You're also going to be able to sleep better because with a good gut biome, you're going to be able to get into those 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep, so your memory is going to improve because you're consolidating it, and you're detoxifying your central nervous system just by improving your gut. You're also going to see improvement in your skin, and your metabolism will improve. And if you drink filtered water and stay away from processed foods, you're going to let your gut heal. And by doing that, your overall health will improve. Good health starts at the gut. So please go to my store and get the probiotics, either in the veggie cap form or in the powdered form. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. Get the great supplements that I offer, slow down the aging process. All right, with that, let's listen into how Mandani is destroying New York.
Let's jump right to it. We got Hustle Up, bringing in Art Leffer and Steve Moore, my two pals. There is some business to talk about. Steve Moore, start with you. There's going to be a Texas stock exchange. Now, there's no companies yet. It's electronic, but they do everything pretty big. I don't know. New Yorkers better beware. The Mandani socialist regime, the anti-Semitic regime, they may wind up blowing that too. Texas will win. Dallas will win.
Yeah, look, I think you put it exactly right. What's the saying that everything is big in Texas? And this is something we've been talking about for several years on our show, that if New York City better get its act together or it's going to lose its status as the financial capital of the world. I mean, how can you be the financial capital of the world if you have the highest taxes on capital investment? And so you are within, we don't know, weeks or months, they will start trading on the Texas Stock Exchange, and it could at some point replace Wall Street, which would be very sad. But look, when you elect socialists who say they're going to steal from the rich and give to the poor, and you're going to...
This has been long happening. Now, Mandani's speeding it up. But if you take a look at the financial district, all right, which I lived in, all right, for a long time, it's like a museum. It's nowhere near what it was like in the 80s or 90s, where you had all the brokers going back and forth with the firms. It turned into a residential district. And when you look at Broad Street and Wall Street, it's a museum. Very few specialists are on the floor at the New York Stock Exchange now. It's a shell of itself. If you've ever been on the floor, you know what I'm talking about. And right after 9/11, what did some of these companies do? They went to Midtown. And then fast forward to 2026, they build other facilities in other states. Hell, the servers for the New York Stock Exchanges, they're in New Jersey. You don't even need the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street. It's just a show. And in addition, a lot of these companies that are in Midtown, these banks, they're going, okay, we'll still have a footprint in Midtown, but we're not going to expand too much. What we're going to do in New York, we're not going to expand in New York. What we're going to do is move to Miami, move to Texas, and create other centers. So now you have Y'all Street, which is a Texas version of. You have a lot of VC companies and private equity moving down there. You have Citadel. So this is the point I'm making is that the 90s was relatively the heyday, and they were starting to slowly close those shops because everything was computerizing. You didn't need as many brokers in the financial district. They were all clustered together because they were going back and forth with the buildings. And they moved to Midtown, especially right after 9/11. And they've had plans to leave. Just Mandani is speeding up the process. And by doing that, now that economic cluster that was somewhat unique to New York and Midtown and somewhat Wall Street, because Wall Street really is Midtown, it's not Wall Street anymore, it's now spreading out. I think that's a good thing. It's allowing other centers within the United States to be able to have a vibrant economy. So this is overall a good thing. For New Yorkers, we are being hurt because the tax revenue is going down. The government is failing in balancing their budget, so the costs of living are actually going up. Mandani is hurting New York. And if this continues, if this democratic socialism continues, many people will leave the city.
That's the hell out of people when they make money. It just isn't a good picture for New York. By the way, I just looked it up, Larry. The New York Stock Exchange opened its doors right at the beginning of this country, back at the founding of our country. At 230 years, it's sort of sad that we're even talking about this, but this is what happens when you overtax and overregulate.
You know, and Arthur, J.P. Morgan, they got more people, more employees in Texas now than New York. Goldman Sachs got a lot of them in New York. I mean, you can see the handwritings on the wall, Arthur, and I don't see any big changes here in New York. Not yet, anyway.
New York's dead, Larry. I mean, they haven't fallen over and croaked out yet, but they're gone. And there's no way Mamdani and those politicians are going to resuscitate that city. You need a complete change, a complete restructuring. Texas is pretty darn good except for property taxes. It's a great state on that. Same thing with Florida. Now, Tennessee has got great taxes and really low property taxes. So my guess is Texas better watch out for Tennessee because we're bringing our stock exchange out. And New York is done.
Yeah, well, don't say that with so happy a smile. I mean, I have to live here for
I love Tennessee, guys.
So
I just love it.
They're all Larry's friends.
Here I am on
Yeah,
studio.
let me just add one other quick point.
Yeah, go ahead.
15%. Oh, just quick. You're paying about a 14 or 15% tax in New York City and New York State, and you pay zero in taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't that complicated.
Tennessee, 14.8 is higher than zero, but they can't add and subtract here in New York, so it's really a big problem. Arla, for one more for you, quick as the speed of light. Sure. Kevin Walsh will testify tomorrow. Humphrey Hawkins, he's got a big House Banking Committee, Financial Services Committee. Inflation, do I have to yap around inflation? Threats to inflation, raising interest rates? I don't know. Interest rates in 10 years gone up. What do you make of it, Art?
Well, I don't think Kevin is focused on raising or lowering interest rates. I think he's really focused on a price rule and trying to get prices stabilized, whatever it takes with regard to monetary policy. And what should happen here, in my view, is that interest rates should follow the market. Fed interest rates should follow the market, not try to lead the market, but the Fed should try to control the monetary base to stabilize spot commodity prices, and then you will have a long-run solution to inflation and interest rates.
All right, we don't have enough time. I'm sorry, gentlemen. Maybe we'll get you later.
Inflation is going to go up, and the yield curve is going to go up 10-year. Many people are worried that the 10-year may hit 5. And we may see the 30-year at 5.5. Now, right now, it's 4.5 for the 10-year and just slightly above 5 for the 30-year. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. And when you do that, you're helping your immune system and your endocrine system, cardiovascular health, and brain function. And you will also notice that you're slowing down the aging process. And Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has the minerals, the vitamins, and other supplements that you need to slow down the aging process. And it focuses on many different systems: immune system, endocrine system, brain function, cardiovascular system, musculature, and revs up your metabolism, helps to control A1C levels, your blood glucose levels. And you will notice that you are slowing down the aging process and you have a lot of energy. You'll have this steady burn of energy. A lot of people out there are drinking these energy drinks like Red Bull or Monster. Terrible for your liver. You want to age faster? Drink those. If you want a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day that's healthy for you, it's right here. And if you're looking to lose weight, a great way to do it is to take this for your breakfast or for your lunch, and then eat a balanced meal at night. And you'll notice that you're able to control your weight and do some resistance training, like a 60-40 split. 60% resistance training, 40% cardio. Make sure you do stretching and balancing exercises to activate that cerebellum. And when you're doing that, you're slowing down the aging process and losing weight in the process. Now, if you don't need to lose weight, just use this as a supplement. What I do is I mix it with hummus, but I also, you can mix it with water or milk or a smoothie, however you want to do it. But it works. And if you suffer from migraine headaches, try using this and you'll most likely notice that the frequency and the severity of your migraine headaches have diminished. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. It is what you need for nutrients to slow down the aging process. You can stack it with the heirloom barley. So you're adding additional, bringing down that inflammation, soaking up those free radicals, and detoxifying your body. And the key to my protocol here is bring down inflammation, soak up those free radicals, get your energy levels up. And you're hitting the 3 major points of aging. Because when you do that, you're slowing down the methylation of your genes. When you do what I just told you to do, you're actually going to have a higher level of ATP. And you'll have more energy, and your cells and tissues will perform better. And when they perform better, then most likely they'll perform similar to what you were when you were younger. Right? We're all going to die someday. But the question is, do you want to have that vitality and longevity as you get older? Or do you want to start having problems and needing to depend on pharmacopoeia? I recommend that you listen to me. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description. All right, let's listen to former Defense Secretary Asper.
President Trump has declared the ceasefire over. Is the memo of understanding as you see it now dead as well?
I hope so. I hope so. Look, first of all, I don't think the ceasefire was ever in place. I've been describing it more as a suspension of major hostilities because we were having every few days these tit-for-tat strikes, right? So that said, he's hinted at, but I'd like to hear him explicitly say the MOU is done, because of the 14 points, only one addressed the nuclear issue, and even that had just a subtle reference to the disposition of enriched material, which I thought favored Iran. But the other 13 points, if you take out the administrative ones, it was much more about, how we were going to, the reconstruction fund for Iran, we were going to free up assets, and we're going to renew the licenses, much how we were going to pull U.S. troops back out of the region, which to me was in there, and nobody's really addressed what that meant. And so I had a lot of concerns about what was in the black letter language of the deal. And so I'd like to see him start over and kind of come up with something, craft something maybe more narrow that gets us through the first phase regarding a real ceasefire and the status of the strait. And then we'll figure out the nuclear stuff later.
Play that out for me, what that looks like. So here we are, where we've had this back and forth with Iran while the 60-day period has been in place. We're just going to buy time and try to figure it out again. But what's your counsel to those who are trying to hammer out some kind of?
Well, the two things that have been disrupting the ceasefire, I'll play along with that word, has been Lebanon and has been the control of the strait or passage of the strait, right? So it's been relatively quiet out of Lebanon, although there's still strikes going on back and forth. But clearly what's at hand now is the Iranians want to claim and have claimed control of the strait, sovereignty over it. If you look at paragraph 5 of the MOU, it suggests and all but states that we acknowledge that in the MOU, because it says after 30 days they'll work with Oman and others regarding the future administration of the strait. So I think in their view, in Tehran's view, we've exceeded that. And of course, in our view, we have not. And in my view is we need to get back to the negotiation table, focus first on at least that. And in the meantime, let's keep strangling. Let's keep our hands around their economic throat. Bring back the blockade. I said this before the president did. Secondly, of course, no more licenses, no more release of funds, things like that. But also don't block the strait. We got to block the ground routes coming in, block the air routes coming in, and make sure we put as much pressure on the regime as possible. Now, I know that means hardship for the Iranian people, but it's also going to mean eventually hardship for the regime. It's going to inhibit their ability to supply their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and others. It's going to inhibit their ability to rebuild their ballistic missile stock, so forth and so on. But to me, that has the highest return on investment with the lowest risk, because otherwise, you start talking about boots on the ground, and nobody wants to go there. I don't want to go there, and I think it's a very risky proposition. So that's how I would play it out. The problem is it's a long strategy. It takes patience. It takes discipline, and then we got to see who can withstand those economic sanctions longest.
Practical question just about that blockade. So as you and I are talking, it's back in effect. How long can we sustain that? Can it go on in perpetuity? How long would you like to see it in place?
I'd like to see it in place long enough to bring the Iranians seriously back to the negotiation table to discuss the way forward on the assumption, or on the explicit acknowledgement that the strait will remain free and open for commerce.
no control, no management, no fees, no nothing. So I think we can withstand that longer than they can. Now, what it's going to mean for the American people is higher prices at the pump, and for the president, it's going to mean political, heat, right? Dissatisfaction with his policy. But I think in terms of the long game, I think it's a smart plan. Look, we're a net energy exporter. I think we can survive. It's going to put more pressure on our allies and partners, clearly. But I'd also like to see this globalized. This is too much about Iran versus the United States. It should be the democracies of the world, the countries of the world that subscribe to freedom of navigation, freedom of the seas, should be there at this point supporting us in whatever way possible.
Do you see that happening? I go back to the NATO summit that took place a few days ago. Mark Rutte, Secretary General, seemed to leave the door open for that. I mean, the president's dissatisfaction with the fact that allies haven't come to help was pretty palpable. Do you think the NATO allies are likely to come around to the idea that they need to help?
Yes, I'm going to pick up the word NATO because I don't think it's a NATO issue.
No.
So what I say is our European allies should be on board with us, and our Canadian allies, and our Australian and New Zealand. We kind of go around the globe. Every democracy, whether it's north, south, east, or west, should be on board supporting the opening of the strait, the defending the principle of freedom of navigation and freedom of the seas. And we're just not really seeing that right now. I know we got into this without consulting them. I know that rubs them wrong, but here we are 5 months into it. Let's step back. Let's look at the bigger picture and see what's at stake at this point in time. We're talking about the strait, but we got to remember we're still dealing with an Iran that wants to pursue nuclear weapons, threaten others, and of course has proxies throughout the region.
Question about strategic clarity. So over the last 24 hours, initially it was President Trump who imposed this 20% toll on ships in exchange for protection, took that off, talked about kind of investment from Gulf nations. Is it useful to have that at that moment? Do you have a good sense of his sense of strategic clarity?
Look, I think that's frustration revealing itself. He said that before, and it ultimately comes back to where it makes sense, and that is defending the freedom of navigation, the freedom of commerce. And Secretary of State Rubio said, J.D. Vance, many members of this cabinet have defended that principle. So he's coming back to that, and I think we'll defend that principle. But I think, like I said, I think he thought he had to deal with the Iranians, and now believes they've broken it, and there's frustration. That's understandable.
Let's talk a bit about Europe, and something that came out of that NATO summit was the president's willingness to give a Patriot's license to Ukraine. How do you see that playing out in actual fact? I know there's been some concern here. Why build a factory that could do that in Ukraine if it would be a target to the Russians?
Sure.
How do you do it, and how do you do it so it's useful for them right now?
Well, look, I think first and foremost that was an important signal coming out of the summit. Also, his engagement with Zelensky was far better than it's been in the past. So it was an important signal. But in terms of a material difference now, it's not going to make it because, look, I work for a major defense industrial, and I understand the Patriot MSE missiles. I know how long it takes to stand up a line, to train workers, to build your supply chains. We also have the practical experience, for example, of Germany, who I think got permission to build Patriots in 2022 and have yet to build one. So I think the signal was very important. I think it expressed a confidence from the president in terms of Zelensky and Ukraine, but seeing missiles coming off the line anytime soon is going to be out there. So I think there's going to still be that need for us to up our production output and to make up for that, and then for the European allies to contribute as well, reprioritize the flow of weapons so that he can defend them against ballistic missiles, which he cannot do right now.
NATO summits are, as you know, very short, just a day and a half, but there was this evolution of President Trump's rhetoric over the course of that day and a half. As you say, he did kind of come around to talking up Ukraine. It was a positive meeting with President Zelensky. What do you attribute that to?
Well, look, you're right. He came in with a lot of grievances about
familiar ones.
Yeah, but justified ones as well in some cases. So I've been saying from my time in office, my first appearance at NATO, when I was nominated but not yet confirmed, I stood up there and I said in Brussels, look, I served in NATO. I was a soldier based in Europe. I'm a strong believer in the alliance, but they have to live up to their obligations. At that point in time, it was 2%, and only 7 or 8 countries were meeting that. And here we are, 6-7 years later, the bar has been moved to 5%. Most allies have done that. Some of them have said, yeah, 5%, but by the year 2030, whatever. Way too late. And others have flatly refused. So he's right to say that some are still not doing their fair share. And he's highlighted Spain as one. I think others, Greenland, for example, we can agree that just kind of really cuts under to NATO, the core of what it means, because Greenland, part of Denmark, which is part of NATO. So, but he came out of it in the end. I think he had good discussions, one-on-ones with leaders. Obviously, the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has built a good relationship, knows how to manage it well, and I think has done a lot of good in terms of building that rapport and keeping the alliance as unified as it can be in this unique period of time.
A lot of hand-wringing before each of these summits. Is the U.S.'s commitment going to be the same? Is the U.S. going to withdraw from it? Is NATO going to survive? What's your sense of the kind of longevity of NATO and US?
My sense is that large majorities of politicians, elected leaders on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, support the alliance. They see the value of it to the United States. They see the importance of it in terms of defending democracies of the world against the autocracies of the world. And in fact, I think a latest poll came out that said a majority of MAGA, self-identified MAGA Republicans support the alliance. And so I think support will be there. I think, again, frankly, there's been, and it's less so now, that our other allies have to recognize the fact that the American people, not just this administration, but the American people are tired of carrying the burden mostly by themselves. And when I talked to the Europeans, I gave the same speech and I said, look, Donald Trump's not saying anything new. President Obama in 2014 at the Wells Summit, I think, when the 2% threshold was met, called them free riders. If you go all the way back, it goes back to Eisenhower, which said the Europeans need to do more. So look, in this day and age, we have a revanchist Russia, we have a China that has global ambitions. We all have to spend more, put more capabilities out there and be able to defend, again, not just against Russia, but against the autocracies and their coordinated rise that's happening out there in the world.
I had a couple questions about China before I get there. Let me just ask what the U.S.'s attitude toward Europe at this moment in time. So you have the Defense Secretary conducting this review. How many troops should we have in Europe? Well, the general who is in charge of the overseeing Europe and Africa. Do you feel like the U.S. is dramatically supporting Europe at this moment? Is that relationship under a kind of revision or rethink at this moment?
Look, I think it's always good to review your troop dispositions and capability dispositions around the globe. I did the same when I came in. With regard to Europe, because I knew the president did not like the presence of so many troops in Germany as a case in point. And what I said to my commander at the time is I said, look, I want you to provide me options, but they have to meet a few core principles, right? They have to reassure the allies. They have to maintain operational readiness for the United States. They have to deter Russia. It has to meet certain principles, and then tell me what you came up with. And we came up with a pretty credible plan of moving, I think it was actually 11,000 troops out of Germany, but it wasn't back to the United States. We eventually came forward with a plan that would move them closer to the Russians, so into Poland, into Romania, into Bulgaria. And so I think if you come up with something that looks like that, where it meets certain key principles of preserving readiness, reassuring allies, deterring Russia, et cetera, then I think it's good to have these reviews and take a look at what your footprint looks like. And the world changes as well. I mean, the Chinese continue to build capabilities in the Indo-Pacific, and that may require some changing around as well.
Let me get there, because I think we're gazing eastward, looking at what's happening in Europe.
We need to focus on Asia. And if we are successful in the Middle East, our leverage against China will increase. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 35 or cleanse. Take a teaspoon a day every day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and swallow. This will neutralize and improve your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, help maintain a mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells. That's going to boost up your innate immune system. Super important to do every day. I do this protocol every day for over 6 years, every day. And you're going to be neutralizing. And by neutralizing, you're not going to be sick as often. So please go to my store and get the Max 35 or the Cleanse. Now, this stack that I'm going to show you really improves your immune system, cardiovascular system, but also helps with brain function. Lignans soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation, helps the immune system and endocrine system. Ashwagandha root controls your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. And turmeric brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals. Now, you can take them separately, but stacking them is a powerful way, synergistically, to make sure you have less plaque formation, bringing down that inflammation at the brain level and soaking up those free radicals, keeps those dendritic connections healthy, so your brain functions better, your immune system and your endocrine system will perform better. And when you do that every day, guess what? You slow down the aging process, and you're reducing the amount of methylation that's taking place on your genes as you get older. So you're slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the ashwagandha root, lignans, and the turmeric. Take them together. You can take them separately, but it's synergistic. Take my advice. Take them together. Please go to my store. Use discount 5 so you save some money. And click that link that's in the description box. Go to my website and purchase the products. It's really simple. All right. Let's listen to Cash Jordan because New York is going to hell in a handbasket.
Just broke the wrong record. Listen.
This comes as a new report confirms something many of us have felt. Housing prices just hit another record high in the city.
Yes, stunning new numbers. They are alarming. And I can tell you that the June median rents in Manhattan surged to numbers we've never seen before. And that is pushing up prices in the outer boroughs as well.
I mean, it's pretty expensive. It's definitely a premium to live in New York, but it is a very nice city.
But nice comes at a cost. Alma Raghazi just moved to Rego Park, Queens from Tampa, Florida for med school.
It's probably about $1,000 more a month. Back in Tampa, it was around $1,300.
You must have more space. And that price for a one-bedroom is quite cheap compared to what the same units renting for in Manhattan. A report from the real estate firm Brooklyn showing median rent prices surging more than 8% year to year to just shy of $5,300 a month. Brooklyn also hitting a record at $4,350. Other recent data showing higher prices in parts of the Bronx and Queens too. Average rent prices in Rego Park up 12% year to year for a one-bedroom, according to real estate firm M&S.
The landlords are not running social welfare programs. It's not like I'm, let's love the landlord, but I mean, they provide a service. They're doing it for a profit.
This is a crisis. Yeah. New York City Comptroller Mark Levine telling me it's as simple as supply and demand.
Well, why didn't anyone tell the mayor that? Because freezing rents just eliminates apartments from the market because now nobody's moving. And look what that's leading to.
The growing number of homeless encampments on Manhattan's West Side between the Intrepid Museum and the Javits Center.
$6,000 rents.
Spoke with neighbors who say the city isn't doing enough.
They're making it worse.
At West 45th Street at 11th Avenue, where getting a shave means using water from a hydrant, and finding shade means making it yourself with strips of plastic and cardboard.
I have to walk my dog, and I'm all alone in the street sometimes.
Living in a nearby apartment is Lucy, who asked me not share her last name. She told us she takes chances bringing her pup Ginger west to this area near the Intrepid Museum. Wow. The scene is similar, 1 block up to West 46th Street. And also down to West 34th Street.
This is crazy.
She says the populations keep growing.
Some of them, they're very nice. They're very polite. They get out of the way. But there's some of them crazy.
Wow.
They keep, yelling and screaming and throwing things.
It's definitely not ideal. Yeah, I just generally feel helpless because as an individual, I don't know what to do to solve this problem.
Mayor Mamdani was asked what the city is doing about this issue. We are focused on connecting New Yorkers to shelter and on establishing a pipeline to stable housing, not just...
Well, where's the pipeline to stable housing in a city where your policies create apartments that are so expensive nobody can afford them? And why isn't anybody listening to the comptroller who's been sounding the alarm?
Rents are going up everywhere for one simple reason. We don't have enough housing.
Isn't it just so expensive to build a new project in New York City?
Yeah.
Is that part of the issue as well? Because you see these new buildings go up and they're going to charge $6,000 for a one-bedroom.
Yeah.
More than that, man. We are seeing the average cost of housing easy $750,000 per unit, and sometimes more than $1 million per unit.
He's calling on city lawmakers to streamline regulations and make sure office or residential conversions continue. And that report from corporate also revealing the vacancy rate in Manhattan continues to get tighter.
Oh, the vacancy rate. That's a good thing that we brought that up because you know what? New York City has the tiniest number of available apartments it's ever had. Listen.
It's considered a housing emergency.
Yeah.
New York City's rental vacancy rate is 1.4%, the lowest since 1968.
That's crazy.
But today, they took a step to address this crisis.
Oh, they did?
The city now turning an underutilized NYPD parking lot into a housing development. Naveen Dhaliwal takes a look now at the plans
They're
in
gonna
East
take
Village.
away the police parking
For
lot.
decades, Hannah Millman's view from her East Village condo overlooked an NYPD parking lot on East 5th Street. Soon it will be different, with an affordable housing development project in the works.
It's going to block our windows, but I'm all supportive of the mayor and giving affordable housing for New York.
City officials say the project that will be called the Oria delivers on the promise of putting city-owned land to better use.
Why are you gonna let the police live there? Because they're driving to work from way outside the city because they're not paid enough to get a $6,000 apartment. Now what? They're gonna have to take the subway? Any excuse to defund the cops?
131 deeply affordable homes with a set aside for a minimum of 30% of the units going to seniors who need on-site supportive services. They also say 30% of apartments will be reserved for formerly homeless New Yorkers. There will be a large array of services for those living here, plus landscape terraces and green roofs to enjoy.
Health services will include primary care, mental health services. This building will also provide 25 parking spaces for the
Okay, so
Officials say hundreds of local residents gave feedback on the plan, but some we spoke with are concerned about the building's size.
My concern is just the way that the street feels, and it's 100 feet, I believe, of real estate that's just going to one purpose.
Okay, that's the other problem with housing in New York. It's very expensive to build anything because nobody's allowed to build anything. Then after you build something, the mayor comes along and says he's gonna punish you for building it. It's gonna freeze your rents. And if he fines you too much, it's gonna confiscate that building. And then you got the neighbors who don't want you to build anything either, because if you build new housing, the housing they have, which has a massively inflated price, ends up going down. And then they said after they build this affordable housing project, they're gonna connect the whole thing with a whole bunch of services, a whole bunch of nonprofits. I mean, what could go wrong with that?
And on establishing a pipeline to stable housing, not just moving New Yorkers from one place to another place. To this specific encampment, we're going to look into that.
The city's Department of Homeless Services took over encampment sweeps from police, starting each job with 7 days of outreach before the clearings.
Where's the outreach?
We spoke to this man who did not want to be identified, and he talked about being homeless for the past 3 years. He says hotter weather this week will force him into Penn Station or Bellevue Hospital, and then the streets again. He says no matter what the mayor says, long-term solutions for him do not feel forthcoming.
And you know why that is? As you're about to see and learn, there are no long-term solutions, and freezing the rent is the opposite of a solution.
True or false? The median asking rent in New York City just hit over $5,000 a month. True, and as long as supply stays tight, that number is only going one direction, up. True or false? New York hasn't had a housing shortage this severe since 1968. True, the lowest vacancy rate ever recorded, and 1968 is only as far back as the data goes. It could be even longer.
Probably
True or
is.
false? The New York region is projected to be short nearly 1 million homes by 2035. True or false? The city plans to spend more than $22 billion over the next decade to build new housing. True, but we won't see any of that housing for another 10 years. And finally, true or false?
10 years.
Tens of thousands of rent-stabilized apartments are sitting empty right now. Already built, already in neighborhoods people want to live in, ready to come back as rent-stabilized apartments. True.
Oh, yeah. So right now there are 57,000 empty rent-stabilized apartments, which landlords can't afford to renovate because they need to be brought up to modern standards, but the rents can only be $800 a month, and nobody will be able to do that without going bankrupt. But if it's going to take the city 10 years to dig their way out of this, the mayor freezing rents has nothing to do with affordability because things are going to get even less affordable. Instead, freezing rents just guarantees that 2 million people living in those apartments vote for you every single year because their rent is frozen and they're essentially getting a handout from the government. And if they vote against that handout, well, but a year ago, the city did something else to jack up the cost of apartment prices.
1 year ago, New York City passed a law that was supposed to be a massive win for renters. It banned landlords from making the tenant pay the broker.
Oh, yeah.
Now that we have a full year of data, the results are, a little, maybe not what everybody expected.
Yeah, it didn't work.
So, quick background, for decades, right, if you've ever rented an apartment in this city, you know that you would have to come up with the broker fee, the first month's payment, and the security deposit, all kind of the same amount, right? So, it was a very heavy fee, a very heavy cost on a renter who just simply moved into an apartment. So the Fair Act was introduced, this flip, they tried to remove at least 1/3 of that, at least the broker fee. They wanted the landlord to pay, right?
And now they
Whoever hires the broker to pay. So in this case, it's usually the landlord, so they want the landlord to pay. So
But when they came up with this law and bragged about this law and passed it, nobody jumping up and down that landlords had to pay for something asked themselves, gee, where are these landlords going to come up with the money to start paying brokers' fees? But just before we continue, do you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns? Do you file every year and just seem to keep owing money? Did you suddenly retire and get hit with a tax bill you didn't expect? Or are you a business owner with messy books and a balance you can't afford? However your tax issue started, the result is this over $1 billion in tax debt. They can do the same for you, but you have to call now. Their team is offering call the number right here, 866-686.
cost to move into an apartment dropped from around $13,000 to about $7,500. So that's
Visit tnusa.com/cash. That link will also be in the description of this video.
Surface and worked. The average cost to move into an apartment dropped from around $13,000 to about $7,500. So that's real money back in renters' pockets on day one.
Sure.
Now, here's a part that a lot of people did predict, right? But the broker fee did not disappear.
No, it didn't.
It got baked into the monthly rent. So landlords simply raised the rent to cover what they now paid their broker. Just spread out.
What a surprise!
So in Park Slope, the average rent went from $5,200 a month to $6,000 a month in under a year.
Under a year.
Right? So the cost didn't vanish, it just got spread out, it got subsidized.
Wow.
And the landlord keeps that higher rent every month that you stay.
Right. That's why no landlords complained about this, because they knew that over time in New York's housing crisis, the fact that rents were higher and the fact that people, after they pay to move into an apartment, end up not wanting to move again because it's so expensive, that folks are going to remain in the market rate apartments that they rent at the higher rent while decreasing the supply of apartments even further so that rents can go up even further. Landlords are not here to run some sort of free enterprise and give these things away. And if you're going to freeze their rents and some of their apartments, they got to jack up the cost on the market rate apartments, which is why we got $6,000 rents. And then if you're going to tell them they got to pay all the brokerage fees for these apartments, that's going to push the rents up higher because they got to get the money from somewhere. But again, they can't get it from the rent stabilized apartments. So that number, that 57,000 empty apartment number, that's depressing for a couple of reasons. The first reason is the landlords can't afford to renovate the apartments. And the second reason is, even if they can't afford to renovate the apartments, now they got to pay somebody to go find them a renter on top of that. We're creating so many reasons for there not to be housing in the city. That's the real problem. But remember that police parking lot that they want to turn into affordable apartments? How affordable are these things really going to be?
Before we go there, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support capitalism, because that's the only way we're going to have a constitutional republic. Vitamin B complex, super important to take every day if you're 40 years of age or older, male or female. The first 4 B vitamins helps to improve the electron transport chain to make more ATP, so you have more energy. Vitamin B complex revs up your cellular metabolism, so your tissues perform better, and vitamin B complex protects your neurons through vitamin B12. Omega-3 brings down inflammation, helps to control your lipid profile. That'll help to reduce plaque formation and also oversticking of your red blood cells to reduce overclotting. Resveratrol helps with the basal layer of your skin so you look younger. Stacks really well with C60. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence, and resveratrol helps the mitochondria by soaking up free radicals. You'll have more ATP. Very simple. So please go to my store, get the resveratrol, the omega-3, and the vitamin B complex. This is a powerful stack here. You're helping protect your neurons with the B vitamins, and you're helping boost up your energy levels. You're helping your cardiovascular health with the omega-3. And the resveratrol, it's helping with youthful gene expression. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off. Click the link that's in the description, go to my website, and purchase the great products that I offer. Get healthy.
minutes from the shore, boardwalk, and Coney Island's iconic attractions, BFC Partners Phase 3 project is boosting affordable homes and local business.
I think affordable housing is a fit for New Yorkers wanting to live and experience both a summer aspect of living really close to the beach and an amusement park, but also having amenities available to them now year-round.
Phases 1 and 2 delivered more than 800 affordable apartments now fully leased. Phase 3 will add 420 more, completing a 100% affordable development built by local workers.
Each individual phase is between 4 and 450 construction jobs as the projects are being built. We do hire from the community for construction jobs, and then long-term full-time employment in the operational systems of our project.
Residents will have amenities like a fitness center, playroom, and rooftop space, plus access to a pharmacy, grocery store, and future retail. Units will serve households with income starting around $25,000 to $35,000.
I think it's pretty good for the price. Also, with the carnival, the beach, it's pretty good, and we have a good little amenities going on.
And when Phase 3 is complete, residents will have more than affordable housing. They'll have ocean views, cyclone games, and a boardwalk all steps away.
There'll be a 60-day application process where people will be able to submit their interest. If you don't try out, right, you never know if whether or not you're going to win it. Well, it takes a dollar in a dream, they say, right?
Yeah, it's real funny, but because these places are affordable, the only way to get one is to become part of some sort of lottery system where the rent that you end up getting is going to be tied to your income level and will be affordable for you, but it's going to be essentially like winning a lottery ticket. I've been in some of these apartments that were just a few $100s a month, and we're in these luxury apartments, and they rented immediately, and there were thousands, tens of thousands of people fighting over them, and although it's great that somebody gets affordable rent, most people end up just wasting their time and getting depressed when the reality is you shouldn't have to win a lottery ticket to live somewhere and be able to pay your rent on time. No, you should be able to live wherever you want to live. And if your city is stopping the construction of housing for some reason, that's a bad policy. That's a policy that creates homeless encampments. That's a policy that leads to people having to leave the city like I had to. My rent was going up, and I was in a 3-bedroom apartment, and I needed more space, but it just wasn't out there. The place that I needed didn't exist, or it did. It would just be, 5-figure rents.
And so this is the parking lot in question here on East 5th Street in the East Village. Now, across the street from that parking lot is actually the 9th Police Precinct. Officers there actually use that parking lot. Certainly, they have something to say about this.
Yeah.
And so do people who live in this neighborhood.
Yeah, police.
With apologies to Joni Mitchell, we are paving over a parking lot and putting up Paradise.
Paradise in the East Village apparently looks like this. 131 new units of what the city's calling deeply affordable housing. 30% of which will be designated for seniors. The $90 million public-private partnership taking over this NYPD parking lot. Part of the mayor's block-by-block housing plan to cut red tape and fast-track hundreds of thousands of new homes over the next decade.
This is one project that we're celebrating today, but soon you will be seeing numbers coming out from HPD on what the total year's production was, which is a much bigger number than 131.
The announcement coming days after a report from the real estate firm Corcoran found median rents hit another record high in June. $52.95 a month in Manhattan.
Here's a question that nobody wants to ask. If you've got a building that is a $90 million public-private partnership, and it's going to build 131 apartments and give them away at rock-bottom prices when the actual cost of maintaining an apartment is $5,300 a month, $6,000 a month. I mean, you name it, it gets bigger as the size of the apartment goes up. Who do you think's paying for the 131 apartments in this massive apartment tower to be so cheap? It's the other people that are going to be renting there. Their rent goes up, so somebody else's rent can go down. This is like the definition of communism. And you've got people that are looking at these new buildings, they're saying, well, why doesn't the whole thing be affordable? Why doesn't the whole thing be locked in at a rock bottom price? Well, there's another question they're not asking. How long and how sustainable are these apartments even going to be? Who's going to pay for them? Where's the money for all of that going to come from? That's what nobody's asking. It's not going to come from the landlord because the landlord's the city, which means once again with these affordable apartments, it's the people who live in this city that don't get one that are going to end up getting taxed to pay for it. And that's the real tragedy here. You got 131 apartments. Great, 131 people are going to get a place to live, but everybody else has to pay for that. Not everybody gets to live there. And then when it's time for them to move, when it's time for you to move,
You're paying more than you ever have in your whole life to live in a city that's just getting less affordable for the vast majority of people that live here. And when a new project does come up, your chances of getting in there are almost zero. I mean, you have to win the lottery. That's why they call it an apartment lottery to get one of these affordable places. I think it's a big disaster. I think that they should let people build buildings that are much higher than 4 stories. I think that would be very helpful. I think if they have empty lots in the city right now, they should let someone build something there right away, as long as it's structurally sound. And they should let it be taller than the neighboring buildings. That's the other problem. This whole zoning thing of keeping everything tiny and small, that doesn't help anybody. It just means that we're never going to have new apartments. What do you think about that? See you in the next video.
This is what happens when you have socialism. Please go to my store and help support capitalism. Vitamin D3 is a great supplement that you should be taking every day. It's dual purpose. It's going to help with gene expression. It's a gene expression cofactor. It's also going to help with your cardiovascular health, especially if you stack it with K2, MK7. D3 helps with bone density. D3 also helps to get rid of cells that have been infected. It forces them to go into apoptosis. Please go to my store and get the vitamin D3. Higher doses of vitamin D3 with light resistance training can remodel your bone and reduce osteoarthritis. Good Night Formula has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower to allow you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. So you're consolidating your memory, you're detoxifying your central nervous system, and you're going to be well rested. And with good sleep, your brain function will improve, and you're slowing down the aging process. And you're reducing those cortisol levels. You're also helping to move closer into a parasympathetic mode. If you're in a sympathetic mode all the time, that does damage to your tissues and also speeds up the aging process. So you want to go into a parasympathetic mode. Good sleep does that. Digestive enzyme complex helps to reduce the load on your pancreas. It helps to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, allows you to absorb your nutrients easier. And digestive enzyme complex has bromelain in it, so it helps to break up clots. And digestive enzyme complex will help to break up glycoproteins. Very important during cold season. So please go to my store and get the great supplements that I offer. Use discount 5. Click the link in the description of this video or any of my videos. Go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. Right now, oil is trading at $78.54, and natural gas is trading at 2.906. The equity market's trading at 7,556 at the moment.
As we awake this morning, the conflict with Iran ramping back up. At the moment, U.S. Central Command revealing another wave of strikes against Iran. This time during daylight hours. That's significant. That's the first time that's happened since the conflict started in late February. Most hits have happened at night, if not all of them. This after a 4th straight night of crushing blows as we say hello from New York. Back in New York City today, I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome to our coverage. We get underway. Dana, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsrooms. Those images are quite stunning. We're going to have great guests to explain to you what's happening because U.S. forces, they are stepping up the pace of the strikes aimed at reducing Iran's military capabilities and especially its aggression against commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz.
So meanwhile, you have the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports now back in effect, looking to choke off the regime's oil supplies, the lifeblood of its economy. Now you have reports emerging the campaign against Tehran is expanding. President Trump telling Fox News and Trey Yingst that Iran will feel the pain.
We have seen extensive U.S. strikes against Iran for 3 consecutive nights now. This comes after the Iranians attacked vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. How would you describe what is happening at this moment? Has the war resumed?
Well, I guess you could define it any way you want, but certainly we're beating them up really badly. They have to be beat up. We're hitting them very, very hard. We're hitting every single thing that they have along the shore, along the waterfront.
Will these strikes continue?
They'll continue until I say it's enough.
And we have a Fox team coverage. Peter Ducey at the White House and Mike Tobin is live in Tel Aviv, and that's where we begin. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Dan. Another round of U.S. strikes is underway as the blockade is now in effect. U.S. aircraft were at it again in Iran overnight, striking targets, and strikes resumed this morning. CENTCOM says the targets are Iranian missile and drone sites, naval capabilities, and coastal defense sites. And this follows 7 commercial ships that have been struck crossing the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper gave a number we hadn't heard yet. Nearly a dozen civilian crew members killed, missing, or injured by the Iranian strikes. And he added, U.S. forces are holding Iran accountable for unwarranted aggression that continues to endanger innocent lives. 137 days into this conflict, the president says Iran has been beaten up badly and leaders can be pressured into making a deal, but the dialogue out of Iran is all defiant.
They continue this language, but have they reached their goals on the ground? The people who wanted to run Iran into pieces, what have they reached? We respond in action and protect what we believe in every inch of our soul. The language they are using is worthy of themselves, not us.
And we have video of an Iranian Shahed drone striking a warehouse in Kuwait. Now, Iran has insisted they're not firing at their neighbors, but firing at U.S. targets in those countries. But Bahrainian air defenses went into effect this morning as they took fire. Also, a drone came down in Iraq. No reports of injuries. Dana, back to you.
Thank you, Mike Tobin in Tel Aviv.
So back in Washington now, President Trump said to be holding a Situation Room meeting on Iran yesterday afternoon. Peter Ducey from the White House picks up the coverage from that. Peter, what do we know?
We know that it is the Iranians who must now decide to negotiate because President Trump has decided not to.
Well, now I don't want to negotiate now. I said, let's not negotiate. 3 days ago, we had a deal.
And now the New York Times describes that deal as a memorandum of misunderstanding as President Trump plots ways to pressure the Iranians back into compliance. That is why he and the vice president and the war secretary and the CIA director are in the Situation Room yesterday, according to Axios. The sources said the meeting focused on new plans for devastating strikes on strategic targets in Iran, in addition to the strikes against Iranian targets in the Strait of Hormuz. The White House declined to comment. House Democrats now claim the war isn't ending because the exit strategy isn't clear.
This administration has never said with real certainty why they started bombing Iran in the first place, and they're also not saying what their goal is and what it's going to take to get out, because they don't know how they're going to get out. They just want to continue deploying all of our resources because they have an industry to uphold, and I think that it's horrible. I think we need to be holding them accountable for that.
A little over 3 hours ago, the United States military started striking targets in Iran. They were hitting equipment that's been used to target commercial vessels in the Strait. We expect to hear more from about that from the president himself when he pops up this afternoon at the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, PA.
All right, we'll be watching for that. Thank you, Peter. Nice to see you from New York along there. A lot of news in that trading interview.
There is. There's a little bit more, too, because the president was talking about how will Iran possibly get back to the table. Listen here.
Seen this week against Iran will expand. Are you considering hitting energy targets or other locations inside Iran?
I'll save the energy targets for last, but ultimately we'll hit energy targets, yeah. Next week it gets really bad for them because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. We're going to knock out all their power plants. We're going to knock out all their bridges unless they get to the table and negotiate.
So that pressure coming to try, and I think the telegraphing soon is to try to get Tehran to say, okay, we're going to take you seriously now, but I think they better take the president seriously. Sounds like it.
Something happened today that has not happened since this conflict started. They went after an army barracks about 120 miles inland in Iran and took out at least 7 army troops and wounded 260 others. That's the report we're getting. And just about an hour ago, Dana, they also hit one of those islands in the Strait of Hormuz. If you look at it on a map, it looks like this, like a desert rock in the middle of the water. But those desert rocks, let's say, hold the military installations for Iran that control traffic through the strait. So that was yet another target today, and we'll see what else we get.
So we have much more to come. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming.
All right, there's going to be a moratorium on data center construction in New York. This was announced by the New York governor. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Zeolite will help to bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to detoxify your body. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, do that daily, and you'll be able to improve your immune system and endocrine system. Your body will perform better. This zeolite you can take every day. Not everybody's zeolite out there you can, but this you can. You can take it every day. 3 small drops every day. If you want a more intense detox once a year or so, what you should do is take 5 to 10 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water each day, and then do that until the bottle's done. Do that once or twice a year. But I recommend doing the maintenance, the low drop maintenance way to just detoxify your body regularly. Now, it's also important to stop the exposure. You want to drink filtered water, and you want to stay away from processed foods. Also, take a look at your home and get rid of cleaning supplies or paints that you don't need in your garage or in your basement or even in your pantry or closets. If you do need them, put them in a double layer container to reduce degassing so you're not breathing and being exposed on a regular basis to those chemicals. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Very high quality, great way to detoxify your body.
New York State halting construction on large new data centers for 1 year. 1 year moratorium. They're so proud, these Democrats, becoming the first state to do so. Governor Kathy Hochul says this will give lawmakers more time to craft some regulations.
These data centers require millions of gallons of water, straining the local supplies. And when powered by fossil fuels, they drive up our carbon footprint. I refuse to let those costs be passed on to New Yorkers, who already pay too much for their utility bills.
It's a bit of a different story. Just cross the state line in Pennsylvania. Residents are striking it rich, according to the Wall Street Journal, selling land to data center developers. 96 rural families in Salem Township selling their farmland for a combined, just a little more than $500 million, $586 million to be exact. Jason Turner, you wrote about this. Biggest threat to AI investment is populism. And you pick and choose, but are the Democrat regions in the states more aggressive, you think, than like the kind of red states and the conservative rural areas?
I think that's undoubtedly true. I think there are some valid concerns in terms of the impact on utilities. So a lot of utility prices, but I think a lot of the hyperscalers have made a pledge to try to cover some of those costs. And I view this as highly regressive. This is it's completely dumb policy on the part of New York. It reminds me a lot of fracking. I don't know if you remember, the same thing happened where, if you had a rural town in New York that stayed a rural town, and then 10 miles over in Pennsylvania, they have a Jaguar dealership, right? It's same basic town. It's just separated only by a state border. This is the future, but I also say, I don't want to be overly cynical, but this is kind of the way the game works in Washington. People say, well, it's an awfully nice company you got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it, right? And so now what happens, all of the hyperscalers are heavily involved in lobbying and in counteracting the regulatory machinery that's going against
Can I ask you a question on that? In my opinion, they're not they might be doing the lobbying in DC,
Why aren't they out talking to us and telling them, by the way, what she said about water use isn't true. By the way, we're self-dependent. We've created our own water and our own power. By the way, we're giving back to the grid, 10, whatever. I'm not hearing them come out. Maybe they're doing it behind the scenes in Washington, but the public is not with them.
No.
If they want to get the public with them, why aren't they talking about the benefit?
I don't know. I will say Meta, if you look at Facebook, they hired obviously Dina Powell, who I think is a player, is a Washington player, is a financial player. And I think that was, I'm not taking anything away from her, but it wasn't for her technological skills. It's because of her PR and government relations skills, which are considerable. So I think they know the game. But the thing is, the technology sector is not where the energy sector was at the start of the fracking boom. The energy had been very accustomed to being regulated, had a whole lobbying apparatus. Tech is relatively new, and this is a lot of work has been done on this by my business partner Dave Clifton in Washington D.C. and saying in some ways data centers are the new fracking. And so ultimately, I think it gets done. But I also say that it's going to be more red state oriented than blue state.
And we should point out Senator Dave McCormick from Pennsylvania is Dina Powell's husband.
That's correct.
So she is connected politically.
They got started before they needed to do a big sales pitch on these data centers. I think that's one of the reasons that they're not ready to do it. I mean, they're doing business. They're building things. That's their orientation is not political handshaking, right? They just want to get things done. And now they're finding that they've got to do that. But this is bad news for New York. Too bad for New York.
Yeah.
Like they're just going to be, these guys are going to go where they can to get this done. They're going to find ways. You can't take a year off in the data center business. That's like not running the first 50 laps in the Indy 500 and then say you're going to win the race. You're out of it. You're done. New York's not going to be the place. If you're not in the game right now, you're not going to be in the game.
Can I push back? Could it be good? And that a lot of the people who sold out their farms are getting pushed back and saying you sold out. How dare you? These were family-run farms. These were land that had been in the family for generations. You sold out to big tech for a couple $1 million. I agree. If someone offered me $10 million, that is life-changing money, and it's their property. They have the right to do with it what I want. But Jackie, they're getting a lot of pushback. We've talked, Brian, about these big tech companies coming in and changing rural America.
I'm with you. I get it.
Hey, is it better to slow down? Big tech changed our children on social media. They're changing rural America. At some point, are we sure that New York loses by doing this? I'm just going to ask the question.
Well, if you look at fracturing, we sure as hell did lose as a state with Andy Cuomo and the pipeline bans, and it actually hurt other states because they don't have access to the cheap natural gas from the shale formations in Pennsylvania.
Just quickly, also to bring it back to Hochul and some of her disastrous policies. The problem is that there are headlines like this. I saw this one from 6 or 7 days ago. It's dated July 8th. From the Daily Mail. Deadly bacteria found in major U.S. cities' wastewater system tied to Mark Zuckerberg's $800 million data center. This was Cheyenne, Wyoming. I don't necessarily know if that's true or not. The company disputes whether the water was actually contaminated, but it's headlines like this that then create a scare tactic amongst people who then will say, I don't want it in my backyard. But these are two sides that are going to jockey back and forth. I definitely think to the bigger picture issue about Kathy Hochul is that she misses the forest through the trees on these things.
She is, because she's not going to have those jobs to tax. She's not going to have those data centers to tax, which is the next step for states like Virginia is stepping up to do that. And just a side note, that video of her, something's wrong with her eye. It was like,
No,
it looked like she got stung by a bee on her eyelid.
No, the U.S. military looked up.
No, I'm just, we play video and everybody at home's like, what's wrong with her eye? Well, I don't know, but.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Structural Nail Silver Toothpaste. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with your gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line, improve your oral cavity, It has the structural nanosilver to neutralize. It's going to improve your oral cavity, and by improving your oral cavity, you're also improving your cardiovascular and valvular health. It's a very high quality toothpaste. You should be using this every day, especially during the winter season, because it has the structural nanosilver. It has no fluoride. Now, the structural nanosilver gels, you can get in the tube form or the quick dispenser called Renew. You can use it as a daily skincare. You can put it on a cut. It'll help to heal the cut quicker by about a third of the time because it keeps it clean. And it's perfect for the cold season and the allergy season. Lightly coat your nostrils. Stays active for 5.5 hours. And it helps to neutralize. Please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver gel, either in the quick dispenser form or in the tube form. And C60. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce to get it in the higher ounce configuration. Take a teaspoon a day every day. I've been taking this for over 10 years. Every day, teaspoon a day. It's going to soak up free radicals, improve the health of your cell, reduce inflammation and stress on the cell and the tissues. Your organ system will improve. Your immune system and your cardiovascular system will improve. Your endocrine system will improve, even brain function. By soaking up those free radicals, you're producing less stress. The mitochondria will boost up the energy levels. And when your tissues are performing better, you're aging slower. It's really simple. And at the vascular level, by soaking up those free radicals, you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL. So you're reducing plaque formation. So please go to my store and get the C60. Stack this with resveratrol, and that will help the basal layer to improve your skin. If you do this every day, you will slow down the aging process and look younger. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. For max benefits, follow this protocol. Max 35 or cleanse, take the probiotics, take the C60, take the turmeric, ashwagandha and lignans, and the boomer boost. That's a powerful protocol to do every day to slow down the aging process. And it won't take that much time before you see tangible results. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This is going to be the end of my broadcast for today. Thank you for listening. Please share the links and ask your social media to follow me and get the great products that I offer. If you're an international audience, please help support the work that I do by donating on my website. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. But if you're a domestic viewer, you can also help support the work by donating and being a paid member to Patreon. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.